No, we're good. All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is a special council meeting. I'll have the clerk reading into the record my letter and call roll.
A letter from the President of Council dated April 29, 2024, Laura W. Johnson, Clerk of Council, New Orleans City Council, 1300 Perdido Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. Dear Madam Clerk, pursuant to my authority in Section 3-1075 of the Home Rule Charter of the City of New Orleans, there will be a special council meeting on Tuesday, April 30th, 2024 at 1:30 p.m. The meeting will be dedicated to Motion 2485, in the correspondence lease agreement with 1615 Porges Tower LLC and other matters that may properly come before the City Council. Please make necessary arrangements to have this special meeting cablecast live on the Government Access Television channel and tape for recasting in the future. Sincerely, Helena Moreno, City Council President.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll do roll call.
Roll call. Councilmember Moreno.
Present.
Councilmember Morrell.
Present.
Councilmember Jeruso. Here. Councilmember Harris. Councilmember King. Councilmember Green.
Present.
Councilmember Oliver Thomas.
Present.
We have 5 members. We have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Good job. We're going to take item number 1, the legislative grouping. Madam Clerk, if you'd like to read that into the record, and I'll turn it over to Councilmember Thomas.
Legislative grouping, motion line over M2485 by Councilmember Thomas by request, adding the President of Council as a signatory to the lease agreement between the City of New Orleans and the 1615 Porges Tower LLC, and authorizing the President of City Council to sign the lease agreement between the City of New Orleans and 1615 Porges Tower LLC. It was referred to the Criminal Justice Committee. Criminal Justice Committee recommended approval. There is an amendment to Motion 2485 by Councilmember Thomas by request. Number 1, replace Exhibit A to the motion line over with the substitute Exhibit A attached here 2. Number 2, on page 1, delete the third whereas paragraph in its entirety and insert the following paragraphs in lieu thereof. Whereas the City of New Orleans Chief Administrative Office and the 1615 Porges Tower LLC desire to enter into a lease agreement for the city to lease suites 1500, 1700, and 1800 in the building located at 1615 Porges Street for a period of 120 months, unless sooner terminated after 60 months, according to the terms set forth therein, commencing as of May 1st, 2024, the total base rent being $12,376,620. And whereas the council hereby announces that the council and administration will establish a working group to consider a centralized criminal justice campus to house the various organizations participating in the criminal legal system, now therefore.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilmember Thomas.
First thing I want to do is I want to thank Council President Moreno for this special call. I also want to thank my colleagues for allowing this very important issue to at least lie over into what I think we were able to get some consensus around what is the best deal for the city, but also how do we take and consider the interests of what was happening at police headquarters, as well as many other facilities that are plagued with being old, outdated, overrun with rodents, mold, and not the kind of facilities that city employees ought to be housed in. So thank you, my colleagues, for having us get here. The first thing I'd like to do is, especially given the changes we made, is Mr. Montano, if you have a presentation, if you can highlight where we were and where we are, so my colleagues would know that with some of the input and some of the changes that we think are in the best interest of the citizens now are being applied in this motion that we just read. Mr. Montano.
Madam President, members of the council, Chairman Thomas, thank you for the opportunity to speak and discuss a little bit of the history, the progression, and then we hope most importantly the future. And once again, I haven't been part of many special meetings called, so thank you all for your accommodation. I think this is less than at least 3 in my entire time here, so it obviously clearly demonstrates the importance that we all collectively feel for our public safety agencies. So I will go a little in reverse on what was originally on the table for discussion and then what has evolved since then. Originally on the table was the discussion of 2 floors, 17 and 18, at the DXC building for a lease of 10 years, simplistically. As we evolved through the process, and Councilmember Thomas and I probably met at least half a dozen times through this kind of ongoing deliberation of the best interest of the city and what was in the best interest of the future, and collectively I feel like we have came to a consensus for what we mutually feel is a good deal for the city in the future for the police department. So what that includes now, as opposed to the original conversation, is an additional 5th floor, floor 5, an additional floor, so a total of 3 floors. We started at 17 and 18. The 5th floor was added and anticipated at a later date in discussion with both police and those that will be inhabiting the building. This public-facing portion of the overall lease, which will be encompassed by the 5th floor, will be vital. The original programming in anticipation of the 17th and 18th floor would have been sufficient but very cramped. The addition and essentially the recommendation of the police department for the 5th floor, the 3rd floor in totality, will allow a public benefit and a public interface where we can then rehouse our recruitment and very other divisions, which I will show you on a generally a Gantt chart here in a second. So, and the other major piece that was anticipated and discussed was the term and the term length. One of the issues that Councilmember Thomas and I had discussed is the locked-in nature of the 10-year lease. What happens if something if there is a future opportunity in a various amount of time that is not, that would lock us into the 10 years? And Summit to say, in meeting with the building owner and staffs and included, we worked out we would have a 5-year, I guess, option out should we decide to move forward with a permanent home or permanent place, whether it's building, owning, or permanently long-term leasing, lease purchase option for the future police headquarters or criminal justice complex. And so after 5 years with no penalty, we will have that opportunity to reevaluate or to, in better terms, opt out should we have the criteria met to be able to do that. So major issues and major changes. Prices stayed the same except for the addition of the 3rd floor, which is now going to be the 5th floor, which will be the public facing, and then I'll go into who will be on that floor. And then obviously the discussion about having the option to leave within 5 years should there be a permanent police structure, headquarters, or criminal justice complex to be discussed. I can pause there, council member. Those are the major fundamental changes from the most recent lease to where we are now, or I can keep diving into a little bit more of the space planning and programming and anticipated timelines should there be an affirmative vote by the council. I'll defer to you.
No, I would also like you to mention the working group.
Oh, yes, sir.
Which the council will name and the administration will name members of the working group that we hope at some point we'll look at permanent facilities. And I mentioned to Councilmember Moreno, even address maybe those issues of longstanding issues with public properties and their use and the fact that they sit neglect. But I think that's good. That's an important addition also, Mr. Montano.
Absolutely. President Moreno, Chairman Thompson, the working group, as also part of the discussion, was vital. As we know, leasing is never a great option for anybody. I mean, you're basically not getting any kind of major return other than the use as far as equity goes in a building or facility. So this is obviously a temporary fix to a long-standing, unbearable issue that our police department and police headquarters has faced, not negating other facilities that are also in that same dire detriment, but focusing more specifically at headquarters. The discussion can't be done in an isolated fashion, and I think that is what we were trying to articulate with this working group for only police headquarters. It is a whole complex. It is a whole system of players and pieces that need to be evaluated for a permanent residency per se in that complex. So this will allow us to, one, determine and evaluate certain properties that the city does own, determine the efficiencies and effectiveness of maintaining those properties as opposed to tearing them down and rebuilding, the costs associated, the different dynamics, essentially the marriages of those criminal justice agencies so that they are symbiotic in location and in nature, and gives us a better grip and I hope more of a running start to better leverage those assets we have sitting dormant within the city of New Orleans. And we all know collectively there are significant issues, and I think incredible opportunity with those dormant properties, whether we raise them and build new, land lease, or have some other options. It really, I hope, amplifies and really seizes the moment and opportunity to address both the future of the criminal justice complex as well as something that I think the city has fallen far behind, and that is the leveraging of their resources relative to buildings and land owning.
You can start your presentation.
Okay, it's a mild presentation, and I'm happy just to address questions after. I just wanted the council to know the work and the planning moving forward. Although we had some long conversations about the details of the lease and the amounts and the additional floors, we've always maintained a working cadence because, as we anticipated, our biggest issue is making sure our officers are housed in a decent wherewithal establishment prior to summer months where we are worried about that potential air conditioner. So what you see in the chart here is just a working timeline of how we are sequencing the build out. I shouldn't use the term build out because there's not build out. The moving in process for the NOPD and the other divisions within that. And you see the breakdown here. We have to put the drops in for the internet, kind of have everything done. We have a large donation of furniture coming in, so we don't anticipate the costs associated with furniture, and it just shows you the different divisions and when their plan is to move to DXC. If we can jump now to the floors, this is the space programming and architectural renderings of what we foresee floors 17, 18, and the 5th floor to do and to house. We anticipate that the executive staff would be moving in first. They're the simplest to move in into floor 18, and then it'll be moving into 17 and, of course, into 5. We hope and accelerate the schedule to still maintain move-in by summertime. But as soon as, frankly, the lease is codified and executed and signed by all parties, we will start the moving process the minute after, literally. So timing is obviously of the essence, and once again, I want to appreciate and thank Councilmember Thomas and all the members for really focusing on that May 1st goal that we had all built our schedules from. Lastly, I'm happy to address any questions, but I think this is the beginning of a very important move and opportunity for our police department, not only for the betterment of our downtown area, but also for the morale purposes, and I think just the professional nature that we hope and anticipate our police department to be operating under. Thank you.
Green has a question.
My machine is not working, so that's why I had to raise my hand. Could you talk to the public and give us whatever assurances or facts are needed relative to what happens if we should need to terminate the lease early? Is there a penalty? Has the penalty been removed?
Madam President, Councilmember Green, yes, there is no penalty. That was part of the agreement and negotiation with the building owner. There are criteria, however, that I want to highlight and punctuate with it built into the language of the lease. We are obligated for 5 years. That is absolutely part of the agreement. Up to and upon that 60 months or the 5 years, we will have to have moved into a permanent facility or criminal justice complex, and that could be in the realm of purchasing a building, buying a building, or leasing a building so that it's the permanent structure of our criminal justice agency, so that we wouldn't have to wait for 10 years for that to occur. So we didn't want to stifle progress. If we have significant momentum or we have an opportunity to seize upon a criminal justice complex, we would be able to move forward in anticipation of that starting with year 5.
I'm just anticipating public questions relative to that. So, especially being in that industry, penalties are something that sometimes don't get mentioned, and I don't want taxpayers to feel that they were burdened with something that happened and they didn't have a chance to hear what the facts are, so there's no penalty.
There's no buyout clause, there's no penalty, there's no pre-cancellation fees or anything of the sort, no pro rata share of rent. At 5 years, we meet the criteria set forth in that lease that we all negotiated and discussed in many back and forth revisions. We are free to leave it after the 5 years. And you don't have to wait to the 10 years, it could be at the 7-year mark, any point of period after that 5 years.
Councilmember Marino, then Councilmember Giarrusso.
Hey, good afternoon.
Hi.
Can you address some of the concerns that have been put out there about parking and how parking is going to be handled?
Madam President, yes. Parking is a thing. It is an issue, and it is an additional cost that we both anticipated and contemplated within the overall budget and budget request that we have moving forward. And what we have negotiated essentially, and I'm being approximate, but it's about $40 a space for Superdome opportunities, which is probably, if not half, a third of the average cost within the downtown parking area. The programming pieces are about 215 spaces that we'll need. I believe the lease gives us the opportunity for 60, somewhere in that realm, so we'll be addressing the dividend thereafter, and it is it will be an ongoing expense, but we think the value and the synergy and the presence, frankly, of all our police units and like will have that benefit. Now that is obviously a month-to-month program, so if there is a future opportunity, say we have with the Heel Garage at some period or some publicly owned parking structure that we can buttress with what we already have as far as a lease agreement with the parking, we're happy to do that. We are not locked in or definitive. We have a solution that's short-term, but we hope and anticipate in the coming years we have publicly owned properties that will become available so that we can augment that parking by free, essentially government-owned parking structures.
Got it. Thank you.
Councilmember Giarrusso.
Hey, I probably should have asked this before. The money that's paying for the rent is coming from NOPD's budget, general fund? Where is the money coming for the lease?
Madam President, Chairman Giarrusso, the money right now will be coming from the general fund. I think it's anticipated in the mid-year that we will be providing to the council in the next coming weeks. Now, remember, that's just for the remainder of 2023. As we develop the 24 budget, we will find the home, and typically, ironically, property management typically pays leases for all the entities, so it very likely may lie within property management's budget to pay the lease. That's just the way we've done operations as far as lease payments, but I'm not opposed during that budget process to determine the location for these particular rent fees. But I will obviously suggest, and I know that I'm kind of countering what I said as far as leasing's never the best option a government has to face or any property owner has to face. However, the costs associated with maintaining that police structure, and even more importantly, the unknown factors, greatly outweigh the investment that we're making, a little over $1 million a year for these 3 floors, significantly. The maintenance alone that we pay for that building, and I'm not just talking like leaks, plumbers, elevators, I'm talking like the janitorial services. All those will come at a significant savings in the long run. So I would recommend the council approve. I think this is in the best interest of the city. It is a financially feasible opportunity that we have, and then frankly, if we were really to be apples to apples, it would save money in the long run.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I'm not suggesting or intimating that morale isn't important and O&M costs aren't important. All I'm trying to wrap my mind around is what bucket it's coming from. Because as we're just trying to work through mid-year and have other adjustments, making sure that everything is well balanced for other parts of the budget. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other council members? I see our Chief Kirkpatrick is here. Chief, before we vote on the motion at hand, would you like to share any comments with the council? Chief Kirkpatrick.
Council, thank you for even asking me to here. I came here to be in support of my boss as well as you. And I want to thank you for working with us and working through these difficult issues. And I just wanted to come truly in support of what y'all have been doing for us. And the move is not just a cosmetic one or morale one. Employers have a legal right to provide safe and healthy work environments for their staff. And so thank you for meeting that issue as well.
Well, in closing, first again, I want to thank my colleagues again. Thank you, Councilmember Moreno, for the call for this special meeting. For my colleagues, thank you guys for making time on your schedules to do this. There's a lot to do. Initially, we all knew, the public knew, that I had some concerns about the lease and was it in our best interest. The one thing that I appreciate from Chief Kirkpatrick and Mr. Montano is the walkthrough of the existing facilities, as well as the evidence room that our men and women are housed in. And then it was really special to walk through the new facility to see the potential for not only where it's located, but the level of upgrade was unbelievable. To think that our men and women were in a facility that really wasn't safe. But it also lends to the bigger picture of public facilities and where public employees are housed. How do we dispense or maintain, and how do we use those facilities in terms of their value in the future? I think we gained a greater conversation there, and I know Mr. Montano and I did, about the use of public land and how do we create the highest and best use, but also how do we house employees in state-of-the-art, 21st century facilities that can not only enhance what they do, but also provide an atmosphere. And then the piece for me that really did it, Chief, was the new recruitment piece. And I think you did, and your team did an excellent job saying, just think about a recruit coming here versus coming to the old headquarters or going to the old facility. That, for me, was a good way to close the deal, especially knowing there wouldn't be any additional costs. Parking would be an issue, but we would also work to kind of mitigate that and get the best possible deals for parking. So all of those issues, as well as I think now, which is a better deal, no penalty. We have the ability to do what Councilman Moreno has been trying to get the city to do for a long time now. Is how do we look at the property, municipal property? What are we doing with it? And I think this gives us a chance now to take a more workmanlike look at what do we own? What is its use? Is it the highest and best use? Is the value in the land? If there are buildings, facilities that are on top of land that don't need to be there, raise those facilities. Let's make sure that the land has its highest and best use. So all of those things together brought me to the point where I had concerns about public dollars for private developers and and business people. Had concerns about how we use public dollars to impact communities. But given the condition of the old facilities, given the ability for technology and to create a better environment, to me, I thought with the changes to my colleagues, and again, I can't thank you guys enough for allowing us to go through this. I think it gives us the best possible deal now while we use this working committee to look forward to the future. So with that, I would move adoption.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Green. All in favor? Aye, aye, aye. 6 yeas, no nays, and the motion carries.
Mr.
And
Chairman?
Move to approve the amendment?
The amendment.
Let's do the amendment
I
first.
second that motion of Councilman Thomas.
Move the amendment. Councilmember Green seconds the amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think that's 6 yeas, no nays. The amendment is approved. Madam Clerk?
And then the vote on the motion as a...
Now the motion is amended. Also moved. Seconded by Councilmember
Green.
Green again.
That's fine.
Vote your machines. 6 yeas, no nays, and the motion is amended as approved. Mr. Montano.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, if you just give me maybe 30 seconds to a minute to update you on some of the other Tetris pieces associated with this. I want to make sure you all are in the loop. As you all know and approved, the public safety warehouse that has been anticipated and planned is moving forward. We hope to be upon an active sale anticipated in the next few weeks with move-in times associated prior to hurricane season. That is the former Chiquita Banana headquarters next to the EMS location. We will be moving all of Homeland Security and portions of the fire department, and then a vast majority of EMS and the facilities there. Tangentially, we will be vacating our existing warehouse with Homeland Security, which will now be taken over by the police carpenter shop, those mobile trailers, and one other entity that's not coming to my head. And then lastly, there is the ongoing effort for the evidence room that is all happening, all in parallel. So there's a Tetris game essentially of about 4 or 5 different properties, all for the benefit that are all centered around this. And then most recently, the DA's office is undergoing almost complete reconstruction. And the anticipated conversation that we have had is to provide he and his team a swing space that will be utilized, and we hope, for the former recruitment division while they finalize. And we're still in a little bit of the nascent agreements associated with that, but I did want to highlight the council since.
Yeah, and I understand that, but it won't happen the same way this happened, where we have what we think the administration has a deal or a move confected, and then we have to figure it out after the fact. That's not going to happen with.
Right, no, all these properties are currently owned by us.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no new, the only new one that would be anticipated and unknown right now is the future evidence room.
President Moreno.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Montano. That's really all that we have on our agenda. I have the lease, I'm going
Madam-
to sign it right now.
Madam Chair, may I ask for 30 seconds?
Absolutely.
Wait,
30 seconds.
31 or 30?
It's not going to be 30 seconds.
It's going to be
we know
1
that.
minute.
1 minute.
1 minute. I
1001.
want to take an
Start counting. Start the clock.
Because it is relevant. I want to take an opportunity to express my support for our officers who were injured on this Sunday, conducting their duty in a professional manner. We ask them to be trained and to execute in the community the training that they have been given. It's a difficult job sometimes. We're moving officers today to better facilities because they deserve that, as does every city worker. But I think it's also important for us to recognize that there's a lot that goes on in that job that many times doesn't get recognized. Officers who are doing their jobs, who are injured in the line of that duty, need to be recognized and thanked for their service. So, Chief, I'm going to ask you to communicate to those officers who were injured the fact that this council member, and I know all of our other council members, thank them for their service and for their professionalism and for their desire to serve our citizens well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Green. All right, that completes our agenda. You want to do a motion to adjourn, Councilmember Green?
moved.
All right, Councilmember Green moves, seconded by Councilmember Morrell. All in favor, aye. 6-0. Gilbert, here's the lease.
Alex?